There we
Perfect.
go. There we
Cool.
go.
I'll go ahead
Man,
and shut off my audio video and then you can go from there.
thank you. Appreciate it. So I bet you guys are exhausted, huh?
We
We're
got
we're
plenty.
doing fine.
We're doing good.
We're doing
Yeah,
fine.
Martin's
We're
just getting
doing,
warmed up.
yeah,
just getting
getting
warmed up.
warmed up.
Well, I really interesting. So this is to be completely honest with you, Martin. I hadn't heard of this before, even though we do a true crime podcast. This is new information for me. And I don't know if Mitch told you, but I am actually a therapist. And so I apologize in advance, excuse me, if my questions are a little therapist-y. Feel free to be like, I'm not answering that shit, Bailey. You know what I mean?
I need therapy. I'll answer the questions. A free
Session.
uh therapy appointment. I got
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
here.
Yeah. Well, there's not going to be any judgment on my end. That's kind of the rule number one of therapy. But before we kind of jump in and me ask a bunch of questions, I know that this is also a dual thing where it's promoting you guys' documentary, and I want to really give space for that. So I would love if y'all started off by kind of being able to promote that, and then we can kind of get into just some fun back and forth questions, if that's okay.
Yeah.
That
Sounds
is
good.
Sure.
okay.
So, sorry, do you have a question started or do you want me to just go?
Just go.
I'll
Yeah.
do my thing. Okay. Josh and I, were screenwriters out in LA and started a production company called Pegalo Pictures, and we were optioning projects. And one of the articles we optioned was called Final Flight of Martin McNally, which was written by Danny Wicentowski. It was in the St. Louis Riverfront Times and it was Mac's incredible story. And so we began the process of trying to adapt it into a screenplay to sell it and make it into a scripted feature, which is a very long, very expensive, very arduous process that sometimes results in nothing. And in the midst of that, Danny said, "Well, Martin's a friend of mine. He's still alive and kicking in St. Louis, and he would be willing to talk to you." And so we figured that this is living history. This man deserves to be put on camera to tell his story. And so we hustled a crew together and went down to St. Louis and shot 4 days with him in 2019. And a lot of that is what you see in the documentary. And that sort of started this whole process where we started trying to make it as a documentary and then walked into a studio called Imperative Entertainment, did Killers of the Flower Moon and The Mule and a lot of other very big films. And they said, "We're starting a podcast division. Would you like to make a podcast out of this?" And we got a runway to make 10 episodes of this remarkable story and tell it over 6.5 hours in all its detail. And we also shot all of our interviews, though, that we did with the people we interviewed. And it was more of a radio play. We did very high-end sound design and everything like that to really put the listener in the scene. And then after a couple of years, we got the rights back and had enough fans, enough people interested in getting behind it that we were able to finance the documentary, which is what we have made and are putting out there to the world right now. It's now on Apple and a bunch of other platforms.
And like you guys, I mean, we have told a bunch of true crime podcasts, everything from, people running other people across the border to serial bombers to casino thieves. And this was our first one with Martin. This story that is our documentary, American Skyjacker. And it is still to this day, even as a voracious devourer of true crime podcasts, the craziest true crime story that I have ever heard. And so for us to then get the guy who lived it to tell us that story was such a treat. And when I say that it is stranger than fiction, it is truly, truly, truly stranger than fiction. But it is all true.
And I'll second that, like Josh said. And one other thing I'll say is it's a ton of work to make a documentary
Bet.
after you've made the podcast. And one of there's, we always wanted to do it, but the really convincing thing is that people wanted to hear it and needed to hear it was that I would often find myself in the backs of Ubers or Lyfts or on various public transportation situations where I'd be making small talk with people, and this story would come up, and I would start telling them, and I literally could not leave until I finished the story because people would be like, "Please finish the story for me." And then what happened?
Yeah.
Are you serious? And then what happened? And it's that that makes this so compelling at the end of the day, is that everybody can't believe it and wants to hear more.
Yeah. So what has that been like, mainly for Josh and Eli, kind of getting the opportunity to put a voice to history, a piece of history, and Martin's hijacking, right? Because it's kind of a weird thing to put in one sentence. You don't say that a whole lot. But what's that been like for you guys?
I mean, it's been great. I think none of it would be possible if it wasn't for Martin, or we call him Mac, if it wasn't for Mac's ability to be transparent and open and honest about his journey. Without that element, this would not have been a story worth telling. And what I still think is the most amazing thing about this is how accurate Mac's storytelling is of this story, because down to the dates and times, sometimes even the minute that things happened, he remembers everything. And when Eli and myself and Danny Wissentowski, who's the journalist that we worked with, who wrote Mac's story, fact checked the podcast, it was all true, and we couldn't believe it.
And just hearing somebody tell a story like this in their own words is really completely different than news reports and reporting and other people's eyewitness accounts. The main protagonist, or maybe some people's eyes, the antagonist, uh, telling this story is unlike anything else. And that's what I think makes this unique too. When we sat down with Mac for his initial interview, we had him look right at the camera. So he's looking right at the audience. And that's something they tell you not to do when you're making a film. And so we broke that rule because this whole film's about rule breaking in general too. So
Yeah. Including reenactments, I hear.
yeah, showing faces you're not supposed to do. And we made
Yeah.
that decision in the second shot to throw that out the window.
Sometimes it just comes out that way. Mac, are you okay if I call you Mac, or you prefer Martin?
Mac is okay. Thank you very much. Bailey, is that your last name or first?
My first name. Yeah.
Okay, Bailey, that's good. My sister's name is okay. She doesn't want me to tell it.
That's no problem. Yeah. If I had a nickel for every time that someone comes up to me and says, "What's your name?" and I say Bailey, and they're like, "Oh, I had a dog named Bailey." I'm like, I don't care. Like I don't care. That's great. I hope it was a great dog, but I really don't care. But as a therapist, believe it or not, you get really fatigued with caring a lot. And so people come up and tell you stories and you're just like, I don't care. Why are you telling me this? But I do care about this. And so, Mac, I am curious that kind of on that theme with filming this documentary, when you have had time to kind of go back and watch yourself portrayed in this documentary, what your younger self, like your choices that you made, your consequences, what is that experience like for you? Like, what emotions come up for you watching this all kind of played out?
I watch it and I think, how could I do that? How could I be so stupid? That was insane. The entire mission, the operation, I thought it was an easy score. That grabbing a plane, skyjacking a plane, so easy with a note, a couple of guns, a wig, a ticket to the plane, and what could be easier? I mean, that's so stupid. As I think about it, when I see myself on the screen and everything, in the entire story, um, yeah, there was no excuse for it. I was really, really stupid, and I say that in the documentary. There's no excuse for it. No excuse for it.
Do you
Yeah.
think that now this is just kind of a me question as I'm listening to you? What do you think motivated that decision? Was it like financial gain? Was it adrenaline rush? Like for you personally, looking back, what do you think motivated you for it?
I think it would have been maybe an adrenaline rush that when I first heard about this and take note of the D.B. Cooper case, that was in mid January of 1972. When I first heard this in Detroit on a radio station, uh, they were talking about how to stop these skyjackings. And uh, they said that everybody who buys a ticket, give them a $500,000 and there won't be any more skyjackings. When I heard that, I absolutely blew up laughing. I told my partner, I says, what could be easier? What could be easier to get a $500,000 or maybe even $1,000,000? I said, I'm going to look into this. And that was in mid-January. For 5 months, four and a half, 5 months, I'm putting this thing together, driving thousands of miles to check out airports. And it was all bad choices. I wasn't criminally sophisticated. I didn't realize that my two friends, my two buddies who were helping me on this, and they knew what I was going to do in January of 1972, didn't say anything until after I was arrested. They knew I was on this plane when I took that plane. And within 6 hours of me bailing out of the plane, they're dropping my name to the FBI. Boom. They didn't move on it right away because they didn't believe it. The FBI in Detroit checked out me and everything. They didn't believe it. Monday morning, this guy who dropped my name called and said, why haven't you arrested this McNally character? He's getting ready to do it again. And at that point there, they upped their investigation, and within 2 days, I was arrested. But yeah, as I look back at all of this stuff, it was wasted. My entire life went down the drain. I was in prison for 37 years flat, maximum security prisons all the way. And while in prison, I picked up 2 additional life sentences. And I reversed 2 of them, and I got out in 2010. Yeah.
Um, have you ever seen The Shawshank Redemption?
You better believe I have.
Yeah.
You
Do
better
you,
believe I have. Let me tell you about that. This guy went to the parole board for all these years, and finally he says, I'm not worried about parole. I don't care about parole anymore. Hey, I can relate to that. In 2019, uh, uh, no, not 2019, 2009, in June, I went to the parole board. No, I didn't go to the parole board. My case manager called me in and he told me, you have a parole board coming up here, a parole hearing. And I told him, I said, listen, every time I go to the parole board, they kick me in the ass, disrespect me. And I've been there about going nearly 15 times to the parole board. So I'm done with it. I'm not going to let them humiliate me anymore. I'm going to just sit in prison, twiddle my thumbs, and wait until I die. That's what I told him. I signed the paper, the waiver, gave it to him, and I'm done with parole. Okay. He puts it on his desk. The next day, he goes on vacation, and he's gone for about 2 or 3 weeks. Well, when he comes back on the July the 18th, a dude told me that you're on the bulletin board for a parole hearing in the morning. I says, uh, don't bullshit me. This is too serious stuff. He says, yeah, Mac, you're on the bulletin board. So I got up and looked at the board. Yeah, I was on a list for a parole hearing at 9:30 in the morning. I had to make a decision. I decided to go to the hearing. And it lasted about 45 minutes. And the guy said, I'm going to recommend you for a parole hearing, a parole. And I told him, I says, I've never done drugs. I don't have any tattoos. I've never joined a prison gang in here. And I've pretty much done my own time. And he said, I'm going to go away from the screen for about 10 minutes. I'll be back. He came back in about 10 minutes and he says, I'm going to recommend you for a parole. I said, that's fantastic. And he said, but this is contingent on the entire board approving my recommendation. There's about 12 people on the parole board. And within 30 days, I got a notice. I'm going home. I'm going to be paroled. I was shocked. At one point, I had a release date of 2082. 2082. I'm pretty much dead in prison. And I wound up making parole in walking out of prison in January of 2010. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, yeah. I was just curious if you related to the character Brooks and that, getting out in the world is so different than when you went in.
Yes, it's very, very different. As a matter of fact, when I was coming on a bus from California to St. Louis, 60 miles away from St. Louis, I called the halfway house in St. Louis, and to call him, I asked the guy if I could use his cell phone. So he let me have it, and I tried to use the cell phone, and I couldn't figure it out. Gave it back to him, and I said, I can't use this. Can you make the call for me? So he said, yeah, he made the call. So I'm talking to the people in the halfway house, and I said, I'm 60 miles away from you. I'm going about 60 miles an hour in a bus. Now, I can't believe this, but I'll be there, but I'm going to be late tonight. I can see that. So that was it. But that was the biggest change coming out of prison. I couldn't operate a cell phone. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, fair. Fair. That's fair. And Mac, what do you want people to understand about you as just as a person that doesn't necessarily erase or excuse the crime side, but adds understanding and context to who you were and who you are now? Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Who I was, uh, I who I was stupid. No question about it. Who I am today, I'm a little more wise, intelligent, and educated. I'm interested in astronomy, the universe, and the trillions of galaxies, computers, quantum computers, so forth. I've changed. And if I didn't learn law, uh, I never would have reversed those life sentences. I changed the law nationwide on prejudicial trial and pretrial publicity. Changed the law with my case out of the Seventh Circuit Court of Appeals. But yeah, I've changed. I have no criminal intent in my brain. I wouldn't do anything at all to recommit. I'm done with prison. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that's a plus, right?
That is a big plus, Bailey. How's my therapy session going?
Yeah, yeah.
I'm being
Well, they say
penalized.
that, the true crime area arena, if you will, there's a lot of split. There's a dichotomy. There are people who say criminals are criminals. You can't teach an old dog new tricks. People don't change. Criminals don't change, blah, blah, blah. And then you have other people who say, yeah, rehabilitation is possible, blah, blah, blah. I personally think it's case by case, right? Like my whole career has been working with uh addicts. So with that comes criminals, right? I've worked with non-adjudicated sex offenders. So I have seen changes happen in people. And I've also seen people who are really good at masking, right? The whole I've changed and I had a spiritual awakening and all of that. And at that point, I just kind of say, that's up to,
Yeah,
whoever or whatever your higher
nonsense.
power is. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. I haven't had a spiritual awakening. I have
Yeah.
not had a spiritual awakening. I'm
Yeah.
just what? I didn't hear you. Oh, go ahead and speak.
Oh, no,
You're
it's cool.
you're the therapist. Go ahead and speak.
You can tell, right, from my questions, I'm just so curious about people and it's just interesting. I find every human being interesting. And so for the directors, for you guys, I'm curious about like when you got to meet Mac and you started to interview him, what surprised y'all the most about him, maybe personally or the situation, but didn't actually make it into the final cut?
That didn't make it into the final cut.
Yeah.
Um, My, well, there's a whole scene we actually cut that didn't make it because it kind of threw the pace off, in our opinion. So much of this film, we kind of have been dubbing it as an action documentary. So it moves very quickly. We really wanted it to move quickly because when people are watching things, their attention spans get a lot shorter. People listen to a 10 episode, 6.5 hour podcast and immerse themselves in it and have no problem doing that. When it comes to watching something, specifically a film, you want it to move quickly. In this story, there's a lot of story to pack in. So, getting to my answer finally. In prison, Martin McNally and Garrett Trapnell teamed up to run for president. Garrett Trapnell, was it Trapnell McNally, Mac? Was that the ticket? And they solicited donations from the public using uh, stamps that federal prisoners were allowed to have. Mac, obviously jump in here and correct me if I'm wrong on any of this. And when they were told they couldn't run for president, the stamps were then taken away from federal prisoners, and that has been a permanent change because of their presidential campaign. Couldn't put it in because
Yeah.
it kind of killed the pace of the film, but it's a great little side note and story.
Yeah. So Mac, you literally ran for president while you were in prison.
Yes, I ran the campaign. I didn't run for president. When Trapnell came to me in 1978, September, came to the cell and he said, in the morning, he says, I'm thinking about running for president. And I said, what? I said, you got to be kidding me. He said, no, I'm serious. I said, well, I still think you're kidding me, but he said, can I run for president? I said, Trap, I don't know. I have no idea if you can run. Check with me tomorrow and I'll tell you. I was a jailhouse lawyer and I had thousands of dollars in invested in books, law books, under my bed. So I pulled out 2 or 3 books, constitutional law and so forth. I read them. Next morning, I told Trapnell came to my cell and he said, "Can I run?" I said, "Yeah, you can run." And I says, "Yeah, you can run." He said, "What you need to do is Federal Election Commission. Ask for an application." So he did that. 2 weeks later, he had the application. and we had to come up with a party. What are we going to call our campaign party? And we came up with National Christian Democratic Party, the NCDP Political Action Committee, to elect Trapnell. And he wanted me to be the vice presidential nominee. I said, no, I don't want to come in as the VP. I'll come in as the national campaign manager. And that's what I was. I was a national campaign manager. We started doing solicitations, hundreds of solicitations. We had about 10 people in the control unit. Now, this is the maximum security prison in the country, the most maximum security. And we had about 10 people helping us, preparing, writing, typing these solicitations to different newspapers and stuff. But we were putting it out. Some days we do 100 envelopes, 50 envelopes, and we're doing it with free postage. And money started coming in. We were getting money from Europe, from England, from the United States. People were sending us money, $5 or $10. It was coming into the prison, and it was all rejected. They wouldn't give us any money. What happened is that in March of 1979, now we'd been operating from September of 78 until March of 79. Norman Carlson, the director of the Bureau of Prisons, announced that effective in June, federal prisoners will not have free postage. Because we can't have federal prisoners running for elective office. Let me tell you something. When we first announced for those first 4 or 5 months, everybody throughout the federal prison system was saying, hey, all right, these guys that are in the control unit really tearing them up. And then when they came out with this no more free postage, it was, oh, we gotta kill these bastards. These guys got us screwed up. No more free postage. Well, let me tell you, since 1979 to the current day in 2025 here, that has cost federal prisoners approximately $300 million. $300 million.
Wow.
And that's my biggest regret. As far as the actual campaign, we filed lawsuits in about 10 or 15 states to get placed on the election ballot. And we had federal judges sending out summonses to answer our complaints, our lawsuits and everything. But we got nothing. We was never ordered on any ballots. And what we were alleging was that because we couldn't operate our campaign because of the Bureau of Prisons obstructions and everything, that we were entitled to be placed on the national ballot throughout the country. Garrett Trapnell for president.
Yeah.
Well, that didn't go. He died in 1993. He was 57 when he died. But me and him, we did a lot of things. He was a monster. And a lot of things that, that was terrible.
Yeah. I mean, Mac, you are a very interesting human. You know, you really are.
Oh, there's no question about it.
Anytime you talk, I'm like, that was not on my bingo card. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it wasn't. I survived. Hey, Bailey, I
still
survived.
are.
I don't have any tattoos on my body. I never done drugs. I never got tattoos. I never joined a prison gang, even though people wanted me to join one particular strong prison gang. I declined because I told them, I said, this was in 1980. I told the leaders of this one prison gang in the federal system that I got to decline membership because I don't follow anybody's orders. I don't take orders, but I'll help on a case by case basis. But so I never joined the prison gang.
Okay. Josh, I want to give you the opportunity because I know Eli was able to answer it. But the kind of same thing, like, was there anything that really surprised you the most about Mac that didn't really make it into the final cut?
Yeah, Mac came and visited us when we were shooting the movie, when we were shooting some of the recreations. And I was nervous, Mac, to be honest. I was nervous about him coming because I was worried he's going to get to set and he's going to tell us this is all wrong. We're doing everything wrong. And I was also kind of worried about what impact that might have on him because it's a surreal experience to see what was really a traumatic part of his life being reenacted right next to him. But Mac was just the best presence on set and was the kindest person to all of our cast and crew, was so thrilled to be there, shared stories, helped our actors when they had questions about how he felt in certain situations, and really put me at ease when he was there, and really became an asset to us on set. And what a surreal experience it must have been for him to be sitting there watching on a little monitor this chapter of his life being recreated. I hope accurately. He says accurately, but I hope that that's the case. But yeah, that was really a surprising thing for me. And of course, you don't get any of that in the film. But yeah, I don't know. Something about that really brought the experience of working with Mac and telling this story full circle.
Yeah. Pleasantly surprised, right?
Yeah, big time.
Okay. Well, I know that we're really kind of creeping past the time, and so I want to respect you guys. I know it's exhausting. I imagine it's exhausting emotionally, just the same thing, just churning, back to back. So the last question for the three of you guys, if y'all all want to answer, great. If you just want Mac to answer, that's fine. But one thing that Chelsea and I always ask before we close out interviews is, what is one thing that you wish people would ask you, but you never really get asked?
Mac, I think that one's mostly for you.
Yeah.
I can't come up with an answer to that question because I just answer every question. That I can't think of anything that I wouldn't answer. If you have a question, answer. I mean, ask it. If you have other questions after this goes off, you can always contact Eli and with a question, and you'll get an answer.
Okay.
But as far as people, what they should, what I would want them to ask and everything, maybe how did you survive nearly 4 decades in prison? How did you survive without being killed? Yeah.
And being part of a gang, because that's usually a protective mechanism,
Yeah,
right? But you were unaffiliated, so.
Yeah, unaffiliated, and I survived being myself, strong enough. When I got in there, I better not go into this because I'm not going to talk about the violence that went down, all the violence in prison and everything. But yeah, if people ask me those questions, I answer them. But people who know me don't want me to answer those questions. I don't want to scare anybody. and I'm happy to be home.
I
Yeah,
I
I'm
bet.
happy to be home.
Well,
Yeah.
and just so you know, Mac, therapy is not as hooey fooey as it was when you went into prison, right? It's come a long way, and there is an intervention that is amazing, and it's called EMDR. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of it. But if you are ever interested in helping with that stuff, finding a therapist and doing some EMDR, I call it witchcraft because it's just amazing. It reprocesses trauma and you don't have to relive everything. So if that's something that you are interested in, it's out there. And then of course, I would love to be able to be a resource. So if you guys ever have questions about that, I will absolutely help send you in the right direction.
Okay, here's my answer to that, Bailey. I've had two lawyers tell me that I qualify for PTSD because of my military service. And even if I did qualify, I would not apply for it. As far as therapy goes, no, I don't need therapy. I don't need any therapy. I'm fine.
That's okay.
I'm just an old son of a bitch, and no therapy, psychiatry. Uh, yeah, it's to me, it's a bogus uh, profession.
Yeah.
Don't need it.
Yeah.
Okay, Bailey.
I
Thank you very
appreciate
much.
you
I
guys.
really
Thank
enjoyed
y'all.
talking to you today. I really enjoyed talking to you today. You take care of yourself, girl. You're very pretty.
Thank you. Y'all have a
Thank you
good
so
one.
much, Bailey.
All
Really
right, bye.
appreciate it.
Thank you, Bailey.
All right, bye.
Yeah.